we are going to create a perpendicular line. So we're going to create a perpendicular line to line AB, but this time a perpendicular line is going to pass through point P. So this time I'm going to pick up my compass, and I'm actually going to place my pointer on the point that I want my perpendicular line to go through. I'm going to use point A because it's the closest to our point P. You don't need to actually use either of these points, but if I line up with point A, then I don't have to create another point. So there's my point A. I'm going to swing my compass over and make a mark on the other side of the line, closer to B. And so since I'm already using A, I now just have to have this second point, which I'll label B prime, so I've kind of just moved B in. And now I can take my compass and repeat the steps of a perpendicular bisector, but this time I'm going to use point A and point B prime. So I'm going to put my pointer on B prime. I'm going to make, again, you want to make sure it's open more than halfway. I'm going to make an arc above and below, and then I'm going to pick my compass up and repeat those steps and make an arc above and below. And I can now use my compass, and the two intersection points that I got from my arcs should line up perfectly with point P, and they do. And so there is a perpendicular line that passes, it's a line that's perpendicular to AB and passes through point P. Okay, we're going to do these same steps again for our triangle, just like we did with the other triangles. We need to have an intersection. We need to have a point not on our line, so I'm going to look at line X, Y, and I'm going to use point Z since Z is not on line X, Y. And I'm going to put my pointer on Z. And I'm going to, again, we're creating a perpendicular bisector that's going to go from Z down to XY. So my compass isn't going to open that far, so I'm just going to not use X or Y. So there's a point. There's my second point, and so I'll just say that this is X prime, and that's Y prime. So those are my new points. But those points, Z should be a midpoint. If we move Z down, Z would be a midpoint for XY. So now I'm just going to create a perpendicular bisector using X prime and Y prime. I'm going to have my compass open more than halfway, make arcs above and below, put my pointer on X prime, arcs above and below, and hopefully when I line up my two intersection points with point Z, all three of them line up. And what I have done is I have created a perpendicular line to XY that goes through Z, and that segment is called the altitude, which you are used to calling the height of your triangle. So that's how tall my triangle is if it was sitting on side XY. Your triangle doesn't have to sit on XY, it could sit on either of the other sides, so we can also create altitudes for both of the other sides. So this time I'm actually going to turn my triangle so you can kind of see it the way that you would be used to seeing it with it sitting on its base. So now my triangle is sitting on ZY, which kind of looks like an N, but it's a Z. I'm going to put my pointer on X, and I'm going to create two new points on line YZ. So there's my 2 points. I know those 2 points, which I'm going to label as, I'll label this one as Y prime prime, not to confuse the other Y prime. And I'll label this Z prime. So if I dropped point X directly down, X should be a midpoint between Y and Z, Y prime prime and Z prime. So now I'm going to put my compass on Z prime, make sure it's open more than halfway between Y prime prime and Z prime. And again, I'm just going to make arcs above. Ooh, I'm going to have to make this a little smaller because I'm running out of paper to blow it. Arcs above and below. So here are my 2 intersection points, And again, hopefully when you can line up all 3 points. If you can't line up all 3 points, then you've made a mistake someplace. And so my 2 points line up with Z, and now I've created this, it's called an altitude, which is always going to be perpendicular to the base. Okay, so we've now completed 2 altitudes, and I'm just going to spin my triangle around. So now it's sitting on base XZ. This time my altitude should come from Y. So from Y I should be able to draw a perpendicular line straight down to XZ. So I'm going to put my pointer on Y. I'm going to put 2 arcs on line XZ. Their location of the arcs, it does not matter as long as they're the same distance from Y. So I will make this point, which I just missed, Z prime prime, and I guess this will also be X prime prime because I already have X prime. I'm going to take my pointer, put it on X. Again, I want to make sure it's open more than halfway between X prime prime and Z prime prime. And I'm going to make arcs above and below. Again, you really kind of have to pay attention to what arcs you're dealing with because there are definitely lots of arcs in this diagram. So you need to know what 2 that you're looking at for the intersection. So these are my 2 intersection points. I'm going to make them a little darker so you can see them. And I'm going to line them up with Y. Again, if all 3 of them line up, then you did this correctly. And then there would be my 3rd altitude. And just like the other 2 diagrams, all three of our altitudes all intersect at a common point.